Welcome to the University of the West of Scotland onto our Lanarkshire campus and today's Inspiring Women's event. It's a pleasure for me to be introducing our guest speaker today at what is our award-winning Lanarkshire campus. Even just last week we won another award in the Green Gown Awards across the UK, which stacks on the back of many other awards this campus has won for being an innovative, modern, technologically enabled estate for the delivery of learning and teaching and research and enterprise. So a very special welcome to our guests who join us today from outside the university, which includes pupils from local secondary schools who may hopefully join us as students in the future. You're always welcome to explore the campus and at some stage come and study with us. I'd also like to welcome our international students who have recently joined the university from Algeria. I see some of you sitting over there. You've heard me speak enough these days, but it's always a delight to have you here. I hope you enjoy your visit to the Lanarkshire campus today and get a feel for what it is that we're doing on this campus. And of course, today's Inspiring Women's event comes on the back of a sporting background. It's an opportunity, therefore, for us to celebrate our own sporting engagements and the provisions that we have, including with the Super 6 Air Rugby, some of whom are here today, I believe, as well as our friends over in Renfrewshire Leisure, Origins Fitness, Scottish Student Sports, Scottish Squash, Sports Scotland, St Mirren Football Club, and of course the Glasgow Rocks basketball team, all of whom we are involved with. Now, I was motivated to create the Inspiring Women's project when I witnessed the difficulty female staff had in gaining promotion within higher education institutions and specifically here at UWS. It made me realise how far we still have to go to combat inequality within the workplace, so I wanted to create something which would show my UWS college and higher education more generally what women have to offer. I also wanted to showcase the incredible women who have achieved amazing things. Each and every one of our inspiring women over the past 5 or 6 years deserves to be celebrated, and I hope that everyone in our audience today looks to these speakers as an example of what women, or any of us in fact, can achieve in spite of the challenges society may place in front of us. Taylor Swift has a song on her latest album which includes the lines, "I'm so sick of running as fast as I can, wondering if I'll get there quicker if I was a man." Now, I respect Taylor Swift. I can't comment on how that feels because I am a man, and so I do empathise, and that is one of the reasons and the motives that I had behind this whole series. Let's have an equal society regardless of any of the 9 characteristics that are legislative requirements of equality and diversity. I'm sure those words from Taylor Swift will resonate with a number of people here today. Since we began the Inspiring Women's project, these events have become some of the most important and prominent in the university's calendar, and we've attracted speakers from a wide variety of paths, including science, technology, governance, business and the arts, and of course sport. And I'm proud that the series has been so popular and UWS is being recognised for its dedication to the challenge of gender discrimination in the workplace. This can also be seen in our own submissions for Athena Swan Bronze Award, and our second submission, which was placed last week, and gender equality measures and the desire to advance the careers of women in STEM. It's important that we empower all people and all staff at UWS and students, and we're proud to be continuing this work with our new women's staff network called UWS Hire, which is due to launch in January 2020. The network has been created by women, inspired by women and open to everyone, and their motto is "Together we can reach higher." And there'll be a series of events throughout the year giving you the opportunity to hear from senior female leaders at UWS, network with other women across the organisation and have open and honest discussion about the issues affecting women in higher education. This is an important initiative which will give our female staff the ability to connect with others and tackle issues head on. But back to our inspiring woman, who you've all come here today to hear. Today we're privileged to have a woman who has had a fantastic career within sport. Dee Bradbury was elected as President of Scottish Rugby, the governing body for Scottish Rugby Union in Scotland in 2018, making her the first female president for a Tier 1 rugby nation. The core values of Scottish Rugby is described as respect, leadership, achievement, engagement, enjoyment, all values Dee seeks to champion in her role as president. Now retired, Dee was previously a police officer with Police Scotland, formerly known as Strathclyde Police. She She took up playing rugby while in her 30s and threw herself into a career in sport. Dee's experience in rugby ranges from kit cleaning to president, I understand, so that's a diverse range of experiences. Dee managed the Scotland Women's Under-18 and was a founding member of the women's section of the Oban Law Rugby Football Club, Lawn. The women's section was established when a friend of Dee's agreed to coach the women and mould them into a team. Dee became honorary club president of Oban Lawn, and then the women's section have become Tennent's National League 2 champions, BT Women's Bowl winners and recipients of the Women's Club of the Season award. When Dee progressed from Vice President to President of Scottish Rugby, succeeding Rob Flockhart in 2016, she was confident she was the best person for the job, which is always the right answer. And that was incidental to the fact that she was also a female. In her current role, Dee has seen Scotland claim the Calcutta Cup twice, the second time with Scotland fighting back from a 31-0 deficit. And it was an especially proud win for Dee, whose son Magnus scored a try during that match. On top of all this, Dee has also represented Scotland and Great Britain in athletics at junior and masters level. I'm sure you'll agree that Dee has had a varied career and a very impressive and inspiring range of experiences, and I hope you'll find today's story motivating. So I want to thank you once again for all coming today. I'd like to remind everyone that the Inspiring Women programme has its own dedicated web page on the UWS website, so if you're inspired by having Dee here today on campus and you've got other recommendations, please do let us know through that portal or through my colleague Linda, who's sitting on the front row. I do hope you all enjoy the event and find it inspiring. I'd now like to hand over to Dee to be our keynote speaker. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Aux étudiants d'Algérie, bienvenue. It's a great pleasure for me to join you here at the University of the West of Scotland today, where I've been asked to speak on the topic of inspiring women. I know you've had some really impressive people in so far. Karen Dark, Paralympian, MBE, NASA leader Sarah Murray, no pressure. So before I get into the bones of my presentation, I want to underline what an impression your university and this campus has had on me already. It's inspirational, truly inspirational. It's state-of-the-art, thanks to an investment of £110 million, accessible and already forging tangible and meaningful links within the community. I know many of you here today are from out with the university, but I hope that when you see this particular campus and what it has to offer, that you may choose to study here. In the past, there might have been a tendency, whether in sport or business, to regard academia or further education as highbrow. But we see the strength of the relationship between UWS and other organisations in the community as a positive step in the right direction. For example, the Ayr campus of the university has forged a strong partnership with Ayr Rugby Club, and I see some members of that particular club here today, and the new Super Six side, Ayrshire Bulls, providing practical benefits for sports clubs and students alike that impact on the everyday. The links create opportunities, whether it's in, for example, sports coaching, social media, video analysis, media training, or the analysis of GPS data. I'm told that there's also an acclimatisation, that's easy for me to say, chamber here on campus that can prepare athletes for the conditions they may face when going to compete in hotter climates. Conditions that we probably couldn't recreate in any other way here in Scotland. I think some of our national team men's players are actually using this chamber, so keep an eye out for them on campus. And the relationship that has been forged by the University of West of Scotland has already inspired at least one other rugby club in Scotland, Highland, to look at what's been achieved, and now Highland are moulding similar links with the University of the Highlands and Islands. If we're talking about inspiring women, then our schools and centres of further and higher education are unquestionably the base from which to work. The stats alone tell us that pretty much 6 out of 10 first-year students at university and colleges in Scotland are female. And the overall student population in Scotland, in the most recent returns, referenced nearly 300,000 students. So many of these students are in the demographic with a drop-off in active participation in sport, the 16 to 19 age group, is most acute and, for me, most concerning. And the drop-off is worse for females in sport than it is for males, particularly team sport. Now, you don't need to tell me that at that age there's a lot going on in your life. Believe me, I was your age once as well. You're making big choices, especially when it comes to leaving what in many cases has been certainty and what you've been used to. No school, no mum and dad to do the washing and ironing, get the food in, the shopping in, pay the bills. Suddenly, while freedom can seem attractive, it's also quite daunting. But that's where I firmly believe sport can give you a sense of belonging, a sense of companionship, a sense of solidarity and security. That's where you can be inspired. We at Scottish Rugby had a recent campaign called Be the Best You, to try and attract more girls to rugby for those very reasons. Here's one of the videos, and if you think this looks good for you, contact me later and I'll put you in touch with your local rugby club.
We are doctors, lawyers, mothers, warriors, first minister, poet laureate, we're on the move, and I'm telling you, the glass ceiling's going, we're coming through. Rise up, take the stage, play your game, don't be afraid. You're a work of art, or Jones of art, always be proud of who you are. Girl, gotta hold your head up high, don't let this moment pass you by. You can be anything you believe you can be. Girl, this world is waiting just for you, so go and shine and live it true. You can be anything you believe you can be. Girl, gotta hold your head up high, don't let this moment pass you by. You can be anything you believe you can be. Girl, this world is waiting just for you, so go and shine and live it true. You can be anything you believe you can be.
I know Rona won't mind me sharing this with you, but Rona Lloyd, who's potentially one of the best wingers Scotland women have ever had, was put off continuing to play sport at an elite level because she felt she had problems with body image. She felt that she would become too muscular, too athletic, and that went against the norm, and that nearly stopped her playing rugby, believe it or not. Thankfully, she kept playing. I wonder today, if we ask around the room who first inspired you, we'll get a variety of answers. Parents, siblings, friends, teachers, maybe university staff. Some of you might reference someone from music, the arts, entertainment or sport. But please, please don't say someone like the Kardashians. I find it distressing, yes, distressing, that our media is saturated by personalities who are famous for just being famous. They're all over our media, constantly looking made up and clothed, and of course they're uber rich. But what have they actually done? By young women being bombarded with images of such personalities and influencers, it simply compounds the endemic pressure to have the right kind of body and the right kind of clothes. How about some of these inspirational women? Some you will know, some you will not. J.K. Rowling. We probably all know her story. A single mum back then, struggling financially, but she never ever gave up on her dream of having her books published. The rest is history. Liz McColgan, previously Lizzie Lynch when I knew her, a world and Commonwealth champion at middle distance running. Brought up in a rough estate in Dundee, where there was not much sport. She started running at the age of 12. There wasn't much money around, but she stuck at it and she trained relentlessly. When her coach died, she coached herself towards the Commonwealth Games. Samantha Kinghorn. Paralysed at the age of 14, she decided to take up wheelchair racing and is now an Olympian and a world double champion. Some of the women who have been honoured by the Scottish Women in Sport, supported by the University of the West of Scotland. Cerys McCrindle, a 17-year-old swimmer with Down syndrome who has achieved despite her disability. Heather McRae, who continued to deliver her golf clinics the day after a devastating cancer diagnosis. Gillian Duffy, who has undergone a bone marrow transplant and a new blood system, whilst keeping her work with the Scottish Schools FA. In my mind, these are women who have achieved, sometimes in the face of adversity, challenges and barriers to success. They should be our positive role models, not media stars whose accomplishment is to publish the most viewed selfie or the most viewed sex tape. The impact of young women of what they see online these days should never be underestimated. It can lead to low self-esteem, I take you back to Rona Lloyd, problems with body image and unrealistic views of life. Just remember, real girls are never perfect and perfect girls are never real. For me, as a 7-year-old, I was inspired by an athlete from Northern Ireland called Mary Peters. We've got some footage here which shows Mary receiving her gold medal at the 1972 Olympics in Munich. And I understand that very few of you in this room today will have been born then, so bear with me. It's in colour, but pay particular attention to the first lines spoken by the commentator.
All these girls have had their hair done for this occasion. The Germans promised them that. Mary Peters, Great Britain.
Still gets me right in the feels. The girls have had their hair done for this. Really? Would the comment on the appearance of male athletes up there on the podium? I don't think so. The girls had just completed 5 different events over 2 days. Mary Peters had thrown a 4-kilo shot put over 16 metres and high jumped nearly 6 feet, size of me. That said, there were some fetching outfits from the 70s there. Mary's achievements made me want to take up athletics. She was someone I could relate to. Where she succeeded meant I could dream that I could too. She's now Dame Mary Peters, and I had the huge privilege of meeting her a couple of years ago. She is an incredible lady who set me off on that journey from the age of 7 to where I am now. Talking to folk about my generation, about the sportswomen that inspired them, there's a really common theme. If the women were achieving in the full glare of mainstream media coverage, especially television, then they became household names. We knew them all. From gymnastics, Olga Korbut, Nadia Comaneci, who was the first ever gymnast to achieve the perfect score of 10. From tennis, Chris Evert, Yvonne Goolagong. From athletics, Sally Gunnell, Yvonne Murray, Jessica Ennis, Kelly Holmes. If, as I suggest, that you're all too young to remember these names, I suggest you Google them and see what they represent. Now, I'm not just volunteering this for a cheery trait down memory lane. The reason is to underline the importance of media coverage, and that's why teams, sports like football and rugby, have been harder for women to emulate their role models. Why? You can't be what you can't see. Inspiration in glorious technicolor is an altogether easier concept to grasp. Dina Asher-Smith, who won gold for GB at the most recent World Championships in Doha, is it any coincidence that she felt confident, empowered and inspired to perform, having seen athletes up close when she carried their kit at the 2012 Olympics in London. She's now a finalist in the 2019 Sports Personality of the Year Awards, and I think it's possibly the first time that those awards have had 2 female finalists in it. That's why in rugby now, the deal that Scottish Rugby has with BBC Alba to show coverage of the Scotland women's international matches is so important. Alba too has been champions of Scotland women's football coverage. So I guess what we're talking about here partly comes under the heading of equality, particularly equality of opportunity. We're in a country with a female First Minister, where 6 women out of 12 hold posts in the Scottish Government Cabinet. We're in a country where the President of the Scottish Rugby Union is a woman. But is that typical of the world of business and commerce? It doesn't seem to be. There are only 24 females out of 500 chief executive officers in an index of top companies in the USA. There are more CEOs with the name John as a Christian name than there are women on that list. There are far fewer females in STEM industries, although that ratio is gradually changing, mainly thanks to educational establishments such as this. Christine Lagarde, the managing director of the International Monetary Fund, was told so often, but we offer equal opportunities, we just can't find the women. She started carrying a list of qualified women around with her. When she was asked about why more women don't run banks, they answered, the barriers imposed by strong networks in the financial world and the barriers we have in our own minds. Now, there is research to support that we females are in fact wired differently than our male counterparts. If a man looks at a list of qualifications necessary for a job specification, he sees 3 he can do and he applies for the job. A female looks at the same list, sees 3 she can't do and doesn't apply. So do we have barriers in our own minds? Do we believe that if it's our ambition to gain promotion and take on a new role or write a brilliant thesis that we can and will do that job? Let's inspire each other to believe that.
They told me I couldn't make it. They told me I'd never be the best. They told me I'd never amount to anything. They told me I was stupid. They told me I sucked. They told me that to my face. They told me that every day. They told me I didn't know the primary colors. They were right. I thought it was red, purple, and brown. They told me I wasn't good enough. I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't strong enough. I wasn't focused enough. I wasn't moisturized enough. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't nice enough. I wasn't musical enough. I wasn't clean enough. I wasn't in town enough. I wasn't awake enough. I wasn't recycling enough. I wasn't listening hard enough. But I didn't listen to them. I trained harder. I trained stronger. I tested new boundaries for myself. I pushed myself farther than ever before. I scared myself. Peed myself a little. I didn't tell anyone. I just washed the floor and pretended it was the day to do that. I fell down and got back up. I learned a new level of pain. Why? Because I don't play by the rules. Because I am good enough. Because I am moisturized enough. Because I am nice enough. Because I stop at nothing to succeed. And now, I always bring a fresh pair of underwear with me. Nike. Just do it. Is orange a primary color?
At this stage, I'd like to point out I'm not an agent for Nike. I don't receive any commission whatsoever. I just like their adverts. So, I'll tell you a wee bit about my own experiences as the president of Scottish Rugby. The perception of many good folks in Scotland is that rugby is about a posh old boys network. It is manifestly not the case. Although, of course, we still have challenges. I still get presented with the odd tie or set of cufflinks, or asked at functions, so who are you married to then? What does your husband do at Scottish Rugby? It still happens, but never mind, I'm not precious about it. So I suppose from my early school days, when I was one of the first girls to be admitted to what had been a boys' boarding school in Dumbarton, I've not been reticent to challenge stereotypes. I've continued to do so, and I'm actually quite enjoying it. After school, I went off to colleges in Edinburgh and France and returned with significant student debt. I'm sure some of us here today can identify with that. But remember, this was pre-student loans, and the annual student grant in those days was the grand sum of £432 per annum. I was advised by my dad to get a job, and pretty quickly. Bearing in mind that my granddad, my uncle, my mum and my dad had all been in the police, I believed I was destined for better things. But that debt needed paying off. So I decided, in my wisdom, to join the police for a year, pay off my student debt, and then go travelling. The police wage of £6,000 per annum seemed very attractive. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the TV series Life on Mars, but when I joined Strathclyde Police in 1984, that's just what it was like. I'll be quite frank about it back then. heavy drinking, misogyny, sexism, broken marriages. Sexual harassment was also rife. At that time, you maybe had one female police officer per shift, and you were brought out for delicate matters, anything to do with women and children, or when somebody needed a cup of tea. In my mum's time in the police, you had to leave as soon as you got married, because the assumption was that you might get pregnant, and there were no maternity provisions in those days. Teaching was much the same, and if you got pregnant, you had to resign. Pregnant and unemployed. Fantastic. The difference in wages paid to men and women were also vastly different in those days. The working conditions in those days were not fair to women, so is it any wonder we never saw many women in senior positions? A choice had to be made, family life or career, and for those that chose career, they were treated with suspicion. Thankfully, subsequent legislation brought this into a position of fairness, and nowadays we benefit from a greater degree of equality. We really had to battle for any form of recognition in those days as investigators. I decided to specialise in the field of family protection, which involves the investigation into serious sexual crimes and child protection. Initially, we were viewed as the girls who did the photocopying, but we went on to hone our skills as detective officers and gain some real recognition as skilled investigators and producing quality cases. After having initially joined for 1 year, I did 30 years and retired almost 6 years ago. During that time, conditions evolved to be far more welcoming and rewarding for women, so don't let me put you off if you choose that career path. Nowadays, the police and most public sector groups are far more forward-thinking. Working conditions are better, and women are in senior roles because, for the right reasons, they earned it. I've never regarded myself as a feminist or a campaigner. I believe unequivocally in equality and treating people as you would wish to be treated yourself. It just so happens that I'm a woman. At Scottish Rugby, our headcount of full and part-time employees has increased in the last decade. We now have some 35% of our workforce as female, compared to 22% in 2013. I serve with 2 other women on our elected governing body, and we have 2 other women on our main board, one of whom, Leslie Thompson QC, the former Solicitor General for Scotland, also serves on the World Rugby Council. More women are taking on roles in club committees. More women and girls are playing our game. In fact, the main growth in player numbers in Scotland is amongst women and girls. More is being done to make our sport truly inclusive, but the journey is not yet complete. My own journey to become involved in rugby was neither orthodox nor conventional. As Craig said, from being inspired to take up athletics at an early age, I went on to represent Scotland and Great Britain. Much later on in life, I saw women playing rugby for the first time and decided that was for me. So at the age of 38, I started playing rugby. I started the women's section at Oban Lawn Rugby Club with a Kiwi girl that I played netball with. It turned out she was the cousin of the late All Black legend Jonah Lomu, and she played a bit like him too. From those fledgling beginnings, I carried out just about every conceivable role in the rugby club, eventually becoming club president. I got involved in the Scottish Rugby Women's Forum, was elected to the Scottish Rugby Council as women's representative, served on behalf of Scottish Rugby on Rugby Europe, a body a bit like UEFA in football. And then in 2016 was elected the first female vice president of Scottish Rugby, being promoted to president in 2018. So just to explain, to become president, you first have to be elected vice president by the clubs at the annual general meeting. Before that, your CV is sent around all the clubs, and then they have hustings, which basically involves selling yourselves to try and gain the vote. As West Coasters, this is a bit of an alien concept. We're quite reserved, we don't like selling ourselves, and I have to say it wasn't a pleasant time. However, got through it. So when I was asked to stand as vice president initially, I thought, no. I had a fear of failure, a fear of judgment, a fear of making a fool of myself, I suppose. No one would ever expect a female to be president. I thought there were so many reasons not to do it, so many barriers. The reality was I had created those barriers myself. And then I thought, well, what's the worst that could happen? I finally believed that I could, so I did. In the last 2 years, I've been all over the world with this role. Hong Kong, Tbilisi, Spain, France, Italy, Ireland, Wales. The most recent trip was to Japan for the World Cup. I had to pinch myself as my husband and I stood in that huge stadium in Yokohama while our son stood out on the pitch as part of the Scotland team. I have met truly interesting people and had the most fantastic experiences because Mary Peters inspired me to take up athletics and because I saw women out there playing rugby, because I dared to be different, to challenge traditions and stereotypes. Glass ceilings are there to be smashed. My proudest moment, was it when our son was awarded his first cap? Was it when Scotland retained the Calcutta Cup that we have here today? No. It was when my dear old dad, who was terminally ill, was able to attend one of the home internationals. In one day, I managed to swing it for him to meet the Princess Royal, Prince Albert of Monaco, and as I said earlier, my dad was also in the police, the then Chief Constable of Police Scotland. And then I turned round and he's got 2 Olympic gold medals round his neck. He talked about that day until the day he died, and if I accomplished nothing else, I made an old man very happy. It goes without saying that I have immense pride in being president, but more so because it affirms that rugby is a game for everyone. There are no barriers to being the best you can be. As I said earlier, we still have a long way to go before sport and society puts out the unconditional welcome mat. As this next footage from American basketball coach Muffet McGraw underlines, gender inequality should be challenged.
Did you know that the Equal Rights Amendment was introduced in 1967 and it still hasn't passed? We need 38 states to agree that discrimination on the basis of sex is unconstitutional. We've had a record number of women running for office and winning, and still we have 23% of the House and 25% of the Senate. I'm getting tired of the novelty of the first female governor of this state, the first female African-American mayor of this city. When is it going to become the norm instead of the exception? How are these young women looking up and seeing someone that looks like them, preparing them for the future? We don't have enough female role models. We don't have enough visible women leaders. We don't have enough women in power. Girls are socialized to know when they come out, gender roles are already set. Men run the world. Men have the power. Men make the decisions. It's always the men that is the stronger one. And when these girls are coming out, who are they looking up to tell them that that's not the way it has to be? And where better to do that than in sports? All these millions of girls that play sports across the country, they could come out every day, and we're teaching them great things about life skills. But wouldn't it be great if we could teach them to watch how women lead? This is a path for you to take to get to the point where in this country we have 50% of women in power. We have right now less than 5% of women are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. So yes, when you look at men's basketball and 99% of the jobs go to men, why shouldn't 100 or 99% of the jobs in women's basketball go to women? Maybe it's because we only have 10% women athletic directors in Division I. People hire people who look like them, and that's the problem.
What a passionate lady. She's actually got quite a lot of inspirational stuff online if you're interested. I would like to ask you to reflect on some observations. Firstly, equality is not a women's issue, it's a human one. Diversity, which we've spoken about today, is being asked to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. An inspiration, it can come in many shapes or forms. You all know now who my inspiration was. However, it's hard to look past the words of Nelson Mandela. He said, "Sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they understand. Sport can create hope where once there was only despair." This isn't just about sport, although it's been the means to an end for me, and it's no coincidence that the videos I've used have been from sport. If I had not been so inspired, I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today. On the day I was elected, I went out onto the back pitches at BT Murrayfield. I was introduced as the new president to a group of our under-20 female players. I chatted to them, and at the end, one of the girls came up to me and she said, "When I'm older, I want to be you." I did cry quite a bit, but I was truly touched by her words. If I have inspired that one young lady, then job done. There are inspirational women all around us, not just high profile, and we probably don't realise it. The girl who was the first in her family to ever attend university and held down 2 jobs in order to finance it. The girl who passed all of her exams despite dyslexia. The woman who, after years of domestic violence, finally left her partner and now volunteers for a domestic abuse refuge. The girl who fled war-torn Syria and made a new life for herself in the middle of Glasgow. The list is potentially endless. One last video.
If we show emotion, we're called dramatic. If we want to play against men, we're nuts. And if we dream of equal opportunity, delusional. When we stand for something, we're unhinged.
It's super, it's gonna need to calm down.
When we're too good, there's something wrong with us. And if we get angry, we're hysterical, irrational, or just being crazy. But a woman running a marathon was crazy.
Officials tried to pull her off the course.
A woman boxing was crazy. A woman dunking? Crazy. Coaching an NBA team? Crazy. A woman competing in a hijab, changing her sport, landing a double cork 1080, or winning 23 Grand Slams, having a baby, and then coming back for more? Crazy, 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 and crazy. So if they want to call you crazy, fine. Show them what crazy can do.
Again, no commission earned on these adverts. So, to conclude, take these messages and apply them to how you want to shape your life. Dare to be crazy. Believe in yourself. Challenge stereotypes. Work towards your dreams and you'll achieve them. But it's not just about passion or belief. It's all about putting the graft in too. In the words of the late American poet and activist Maya Angelou, nothing will work unless you do. So as we go out into the winter air this afternoon, let's find a reason to feel inspired. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions.